grinding on concrete. The stamper is out on the bullpen mounds because pitchers and catchers have reported down to Phoenix. And we will be there for all of spring training starting on Saturday. I'll be at camp on Monday and bring you all the way to the end of spring training at the end of March, leading into opening day at Yankee Stadium. Cannot wait to get back to my hometown of Phoenix, Arizona, and get ready to hear baseball again. I'm fired up, especially given the snow we got yesterday and more coming this weekend. I'm ready to get the heck out of here. I'm fired up to be talking baseball and to enjoy it all with you. And if this is your first time listening, or if you've stumbled upon into your new routines of like, hey, this is a Brewers content, what we got going on here? We're your flagship home, WTMJ, all the coverage we have planned for you this year, I'm really, really excited about. And you can follow us, 620 WTMJ. You can follow myself at Dom, D-O-M, _C-O-T-R-O-N-E-O, Cotroneo, pretty simple. And then if you're an Instagram kind of person, I'm Dom C Baseball there. So Dom C Baseball. It's pretty easy, a lot easier there. I didn't get the memo on my Twitter handle back when I was 17 years old. But nonetheless, let's talk about our agenda here tonight. We'll start things off with the headlines from these first 2 days of pitchers and catchers reporting. We'll talk about the rotation specifically because a lot of these headlines have to do with the rotation, and we'll talk about Brandon Woodruff. We'll also talk about the bullpen a little bit because I've got 3 categories I want to shuffle this deck into to try to figure out how many jobs are actually available right now for the Brewers bullpen. Next, we'll talk about the infield preview. Obviously, everyone's going to be talking about the left side of the infield a lot this spring training, so I don't want to, overload it here on February 13th of how much we're going to talk about. Oh, is it going to be Joey? Is it going to be Bryce? Is it going to be somebody else over at shortstop? I don't want to just completely, blow it out of the water of what we're saying, but this is what we're going to be watching literally all of spring training, so bear with us there. In the 5th segment, I've got 5 things I'm looking for in spring training, maybe more off-the-cuff stuff that isn't going to generate a ton of headlines, but stuff that I specifically am looking for as far as how will the Brewers win more games or win as many games or win the division again, and what will be the players, who will be the players, what will be their roles that help get them to that point. And then finally, we'll wrap things up with around baseball headlines and a goodbye with some funny stuff, and then pack my bags and head on down to Arizona. Let's start with the headlines, though. The first 2 days. This one, surprising how early it came out, but it shouldn't be a surprise as to the actual content. Freddie Peralta has been named the opening day starter for the Brewers. That is absolutely no surprise. I saw some social media clamoring that it should have been Tobias Myers. Respectfully, Tobias had a great year last year. This should go to Freddie. And second straight year that he's been opening day starter. I wonder what he learned last year, reaching the 200 strikeout plateau again. He was barely a qualified pitcher. I would hope he can surpass that mark he had a couple of starts that came up short because I was looking at some numbers for Freddie. Last year, the first 2 months, April and May, remember he was fantastic. 11 starts, 62 innings, so just shy of 6 innings per start. He had a 33% strikeout rate, which was top 5 in all of baseball at that time. And what another rate that we use is strikeout minus walk rate, meaning just simply, all right, you got a 33% strikeout rate, you got an 8% walk rate, subtract those, 25%. Also was in the top 15 in Major League Baseball, so he wasn't walking guys, and his FIP reflected it as well, 3.41. Anything under 3.5 for your FIP, you're doing something really, really well. If you're in the 2s, you're talking Cy Young territory there. But for the rest of the year, his first 11 starts, we just told you how good they were. The last 21 starts, not so good. You knew that, right? His K rate went down by 8 points. His walk rate went up by 10 points. And his FIP went up by a full run. His fielding independent pitching. Because he was giving up home runs. He was giving up walks. How many times did we see him go from 0-2 to 3-2, then walk a guy or lose a guy, or whatever it happened to be? So these are things that we'll be looking at for Freddie Peralta throughout the season, but it should be an absolute no-brainer. The guy you are relying on to get the most innings out of this season is going to be Freddie Peralta. That's why you put him at the top of your rotation. Number 2 on our headlines, DL Hall has a lat strain, which is a big deal for the depth of this starting rotation and swingman role and that sort of thing. DL Hall will be shut down from throwing for several weeks, according to Pat Murphy, as he was talking to the beat reporters Adam McCalvey and Todd Rosiak down in spring training. Several weeks means before he's even throwing again. You think about it. Everyone's throwing right now. The thought is, to me, maybe this is the first domino to fall in the, okay, who's going to be the fifth starter? And we'll talk about that stuff in the next segment. But this is the first domino to fall, saying, oh, well, if he's several weeks away from even throwing a baseball again, are they even interested in taking the time to build him up completely to be a starter again? Now, injuries and other performances can help dictate that. Or do they want to go ahead and put him in as a reliever? Because this has always been speculated about DL Hall's career, that some prognosticators feel that he could be a very good reliever. His fastball will tick back up. His breaking stuff won't be as exposed a second and third time through the order. He can continue to refine his changeup, and he could be a really nasty reliever, sitting 96, touching 98 from the left side. I mean, who wouldn't love that? But that's something we'll monitor further down the road, but he's not going to be a factor, it seems like, in anything come opening day roster time for the Brewers. So in response, our last headline here is Tyler Alexander, another left-handed pitcher, has been signed. He spent time last year with the Tigers and the Rays. The numbers aren't pretty, just straight up. I understand some of the reaction to this, 5+ ERA. This is the role, the unsexy role that is so important. This is that Bryce Wilson role. This is that Colin Ray role where you're a swingman. Some days you need to come in and start, or if they're in a stretch of 17 in a row and they need to give a guy an extra day, you're going to start 4 innings of that game. Or, hey, game is 7-0 in the third inning. Come in and give us 4 innings. It's not a sexy role, but every team needs that kind of role. And Tyler Alexander, his always goal has been 100+ innings pitched as a swingman. There are some periphery numbers that I really like on his pitch design stuff, but that's something we'll talk to him about once we get down to spring training. So those are your 3 headlines from these first couple of days of official workouts beginning. Position players report next week, and so do I from Phoenix. So up next, let's talk a little bit more about the starters specifically. If you want to join the program tonight, the Siding Unlimited WTMJ talk and text line goes like this: 855-616-1620. Again, 855-616-1620. I'm Dom Cotroneo, just getting going with Brewers Weekly right after this on WTMJ.
WTMJ's Greg Matzik here for Holiday Automotive in Fond du Lac with some good news. The once-a-year auto show sale is on. Terrific timing to connect with Holiday and explore all that's new in automotive. Score money-saving offers, get more for your trade, all while navigating today's car market comfortably and confidently. Choose from an impressive selection of the newest models from Chevrolet, Buick, and GMC, or check out the incredible value and peace of mind benefits included with a GM-certified pre-owned model. Fun, simple, and pressure-free car shopping is the way it works at Holiday. It's the stuff that delights and makes fans of drivers from all over Wisconsin. I'm one of those loyal fans, and I know from my own experience that you'll be in great hands with Team Holiday on your side. Showtime is go time. Treat yourself to a test drive. Find yours and drive it home today during the auto show sale at Holiday Chevrolet, Buick, and GMC, Highway 41 and 23 in Fond du Lac, and online at holidaygm.com. It's worth the trip.
For WTMJ contest rules, visit WTMJ.com/contests.
When you work at St. Vincent de Paul thrift stores, you'll be helping us help others. There are many that need our help, and we need your help to carry out our mission. St. Vincent de Paul is always looking for part-time team members. You'll get competitive pay, benefits, and flexibility in scheduling. So apply online at svdpmilw.org or stop by Highway 100 in Layton and Greenfield, 23rd in Lincoln, or 76th and Bradley Road in Milwaukee.
You're gonna love it, St. Vincent de Paul.
For over a century, local radio has evolved with the needs of the community. From politics to pop culture, we keep you informed, bringing you the most relevant news, online, on air, and on the go. You have trusted us with your news, sports, weather, and entertainment. Trust us to keep moving with you. Text radio to 52886 and tell Congress local broadcasting is here to stay.
Brewers Weekly on WTMJ.
Welcome back. I'm Dominic Cotroneo. Thanks for joining us here tonight. Hope you got your Valentine's Day plans ready. Some people are procrastinators. Some people are planners. We did it a little early in my household. Pretty happy about that. But anyway, let's get into the rotation here, shall we? As we'll start things off with an update to the update about Brandon Woodruff. And we've talked about Woody plenty over the last few shows here on Brewers Weekly. So at risk of repeating myself once again, let me just say once again, Brandon Woodruff, I don't care if he throws 5 innings in April. What matters is his availability at the end of the season. I don't care if he throws 0 innings in the big leagues until June. If he's not ready, the Brewers need to make sure he is ready. And quite frankly, part of the reason that they are able to take it slow with Woodruff is because of these tiers that I have, that they have options to choose from for their 5th guy. Now, Woodruff made it very, 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 very clear to the reporters on the ground. He's healthy. He's throwing. The bullpens all offseason long went fine. He got a checkup. Everything is good. He has a clean bill of health. They're taking things cautiously, and you can understand why, because he is likely going to test the free agent market after this deal is up. There is an option on it. These are never picked up almost ever. But furthermore, for Woody, this is a chance, because he's kind of the last of his generation and a guy that wants to take the ball for 7 innings and has the ability to do so, has the repertoire to do so. And maybe the shoulder surgery is something that will help him do it. Now, it's shoulder. We know how difficult it is to operate on the shoulder. But nonetheless, I find Brandon Woodruff's role on this team as being, if you can cross over 100 innings for the Brewers, 120 innings for the Brewers, that is fantastic. Prove you're healthy. Help the team win. He doesn't need to be sitting 98 anymore. If he has to learn how his stuff moves, if he has to learn how his new shoulder moves, this is all to be determined over these next 6 weeks for spring training, because you'll hear me say it now. You'll hear me say it over and over and over these next 6 weeks. Spring training is for starting pitchers. That's it. It is for starting pitchers. That's why it's as long as it is. That's why we play as many games as we do. That's why pitchers and catchers report 2 weeks before the first game. That's why all of this happens, is to build these guys up in a stress-free environment. It's a long season. It's a long spring training because these guys need to stay healthy. With that in mind, I've got the front 4 here I think is pretty obvious for the Brewers rotation. This is no particular order aside from Freddie Peralta. Freddie, we know, is the opening day starter. But the next 3 of that go Tobias Myers, Aaron Savali, and Nestor Cortez. That's your core 4 starting pitchers. I'm not actually meaning they're a core 4. Yankees fans can put down your pitchforks. But nonetheless, that's your 4 guys. That's the guys that you're focusing on for your starting rotation this year. The next 4 that are going to be filling in that 5, maybe even 6 spot go like this. Aaron Ashby. Tyler Alexander, who we just mentioned, was signed as a swingman, like that Bryce Wilson role. Brandon Woodruff and Logan Henderson. Logan Henderson's numbers in AAA were fantastic. So great so that as the Rule 5 draft approached, and he was Rule 5 eligible, he was added to the 40-man roster, thus keeping him in the organization, and his 40-man clock has started. I expect Logan Henderson to pitch in the big leagues at some point this season. And in case you don't know, let me remind you, a 33% strikeout rate in AAA last year. He struck out a third of the batters that he faced in AAA. Great changeup, somebody that's a simple mix. I'm really excited to see what he does in big league camp, as last year he was just over from minor league camp, got to know him very briefly. Only a 5% walk rate too. That's great control. ERA was 3.66, and in Nashville, I'll take that all day long. I think with Henderson too, and you got to remember in the minor leagues, sometimes you have one hand tied behind your back on purpose. There are things that you're always working on, and I say all that to hedge the fact that he had an 0.91 WHIP as a starting pitcher in AAA. I'm excited for him. I think, again, he's going to make his big league debut this year. Will he break the team in that rotation? Potentially, because he's got all 3 options remaining. He's going to be optioned at some point this season, so maybe he'll make the team while Woodruff recovers. Maybe he stays in AAA to stay on schedule. That remains to be seen, especially with DL Hall's injury. Then the next 4 beyond that. So I've already listed 8 guys, and I think of all 8 of those guys, you could say, yeah, they will definitely start games in the big leagues this year for the Brewers. A reminder, Peralta, Myers, Cortez, Savali, then Ashby, Alexander, Woodruff, Henderson. So the next 4 are like the Tobias Myers camp, meaning these guys aren't necessarily high on the radar, but they're on the radar that, you know what, if you need depth, this guy can come up and maybe make a few starts for you. and that is Chad Patrick, who was also added to the 40-man roster. That is Bruce Zimmerman, who was signed on a minor league deal from the Orioles this past offseason. He's a non-roster invitee, so if they bring him up, he's got to stay or he'll be cut. And then finally, Carlos Rodriguez, who's still on the 40-man roster. He got sent back down, came back up last year, really testing their depth. And then finally, Jacob Misiorowski. Jacob Misiorowski, I'll talk about him more a little bit later in one of my 5 things that I want to keep an eye on. But as far as this list goes, Chad Patrick jumps to mind because here's another successful story from the Brewers scouting department and another successful story from their pitching development. Chad Patrick, you know who he was acquired from? You know what trade, this groundbreaking trade that everybody was talking about at the time? The Abraham Toro trade. Yeah. When the Brewers sent Abraham Toro to the Oakland A's at the start of last season, they received Chad Patrick back. Now, part of that was Rule 5 drama and that the A's didn't want to put him on their 40-man roster. The Brewers did. Chad Patrick had a great year in AAA last year. 3.98 ERA, 26% strikeout rate, 136 innings. Win-loss record, cool. You may have seen it, 14-1, but we don't care about wins and losses from a starting pitcher ledger anymore. Keep an eye on Chad Patrick. Also keep an eye on Jacob Misiorowski because number 1 prospect in the Brewers organization from a pitching front. Can we see the control reined in? We'll talk about that a little bit later. So we know the 4. Then that next 4 is going to be interesting. And then there's that final 4 of who is going to be the Tobias Myers and comes up out of nowhere and makes some quality innings for the Brewers. Well, we've talked about the guys in the front end. Let's talk about guys on the back end. I've got a few locks to talk about and a few roles and little tiers that we want to figure out with this bullpen right now. Brewers Weekly rolling on our spring training preview live here from Milwaukee, snowy Milwaukee, before we head down to Phoenix on 620 WTMJ.
Whether it's 24/7 emergency service or it's just time to replace your furnace, at Quality we'll be out so fast you won't even notice the heat being off. And if you're buying a high-efficiency furnace from Armstrong or Carrier, you'll qualify for state and federal tax rebates that'll pay for a big chunk of the cost. This is Anthony Zanevsky from Quality, where you'll get the signature service you deserve.
Call Quality for the signature service you deserve.
Call Quality, heating, cooling, plumbing, and electric. If you like being prepared like I do, you know the value of a generator. When the power goes out, it's a terrible inconvenience. And that's why Quality installs effortless whole home generators that give you power when everybody else's is out. This is Anthony Zanevsky from Quality, where you'll get the signature service you deserve and whole home generators that make power outage fears subside.
Call Quality for the signature service you deserve.
Call Quality, heating, cooling, plumbing, and electric.
WTMJ's Eric Bilstead here. You've been dealing with it forever, right? That ankle pain or the back or knee pain. It was a nuisance at first, and you kind of just put up with it. Now it's nearly debilitating for you, and it's affecting everything you do. It's time to get rid of that. Let's get rid of that pain that's always just kind of been there. You don't even remember how long it's been now. Call QC Kinetics. Groundbreaking treatments for arthritis pain, long-term relief. It is possible. Joint pain doesn't get better with time. So before it's absolutely debilitating, see if you're a candidate for this life-changing regenerative treatment. No painkillers, no surgery, no downtime. QC Kinetics regenerative treatments are sweeping the nation. Patients right here in southeast Wisconsin. They have a location in Mequon and another in Greenfield. Call QC Kinetics today for your free consultation. And if it's easier on your schedule, they're even open on Saturdays. 414-285-3474. That's 414-285-3474. Call QC Kinetics today.
We've all heard of Larry Bird. Allow us to introduce Derry Bird.
It's A.J. Green splashing a 3 down from the right wing on the other end of the court. It's a 1-point game. Giannis back to A.J. A.J. going to try to answer. Off balance 3, and he hits it. How did he hit that one? The Derry Bird going deep into his bag of tricks there.
We're the home of Derry Bird and the Bucks. WTMJ. This is Brewers Weekly on WTMJ.
Rolling along here on the program, I'm Dominic Cotroneo. Going to the top of the hour live here on 620 WTMJ. Our Siding Unlimited WTMJ talk and text line, 855-616-1620. Again, 855-616-1620. That number stays the same all year long. Just save it in your phone. You can text in, you can call in, hang out with us tonight and throughout the year on the post-game shows here on WTMJ. Let's talk bullpen now. We just talked about the rotation. Let's talk about the bullpen. I've got 3 tiers of guys to figure out that are in or around the 40-man roster and in the conversation, at least, to break camp with the Brewers. I've got let's see you perform. I've got it's complicated. And I've got locks. So let's just go ahead and cut the drama, and let's get to the locks. Trevor McGill, duh. Jared Koenig, lefty, duh. Yoel Payamps, yep. Nick Mears, Brian Hudson, and then Tyler Alexander, who was just signed. He does not have any options. He's got 5 years of service time, so you cannot option him. He signed a big league deal. He is going to be that extra guy, the swingman, in the bullpen. So those are my locks. That's 6 names right there. So not a lot of room to figure out unless something really drastic changes with health. This is all presuming health, and we've already excluded DL Hall from this list, at least as far as breaking camp goes. In the It's Complicated section, we have Connor Thomas, who was acquired from the Cardinals in the Rule 5 draft. If you're not familiar with the Rule 5 draft, the way it goes is that it helps players get their chance to make the big leagues, not being buried on minor league rosters for their entire career. So Connor Thomas has to make the team. He cannot be optioned. If the Brewers decide it's not a fit for you here, Connor, appreciate you, he gets sent back to St. Louis. So that's complicated. He has to make the team or not. Remember, this happened with Gus Varland a couple of years ago. Brewers don't make a lot of picks in Rule 5 drafts, so they always try to make it work whenever they do. Next is Elvin Rodriguez. Pitched overseas. He has 2 options remaining. He's barely pitched in the big leagues. Really big fan of his sinker. What can you see out of him? But it's complicated because what's his adjustment period going to look like coming back to the States? And then finally, the other it's complicated is Abner Uribe. He's not a lock. He's still got the suspension to serve from last year. And mind you, when you're serving a suspension, the team cannot replace you on the roster. Meaning, when the Brewers ultimately have Abner Uribe on their active roster, they will be playing a man down while he serves his suspension. That's why it's complicated here. But once that's done, it's all good. He has 1 option remaining, so he can be optioned this season, which means next year, 2026, he would have to make the team out of spring training. Otherwise, he'd be sent through waivers. So we'll be honoring. Abner Uribe will be pitching in the big leagues at some point this year, but the suspension makes things complicated for him to break camp with the Brewers because, remember, in the beginning of the year, starters are on strict pitch limits and counts and trying to monitor their workload, so you really need your full strength of your bullpen at the beginning of the season. Next up, the last tier that I want to talk about here from the bullpen is the guys that need to perform. Like, prove it. Go take it. Like Brian Hudson did last year. He wasn't really on anyone's big radar, but then he went and performed, and he was fantastic. Jared Koenig left a positive enough taste in the Brewers' brass mouth that, hey, let's bring this guy up for a chance in April. And we all know what that became for Jared Koenig by the end of the season. So the 3 guys that I've got listed that need to perform, they may or may not pitch in the big leagues this year because they have options, is Grant Wolfram, who was acquired this past offseason. He's got all 3 options remaining. He's over from the Rangers organization. He's somebody yet to make his big league debut. They're not going to be rushing him. But again, the Brewers have a knack of finding these guys that, with respect to Grant, you've never heard of, and then all of a sudden, they're studs in the back end of their bullpen. So that's a need-to-perform kind of guy. Grant Anderson is in that same camp as well. He's got 1 option remaining. And then finally, Elvis Peguero. Elvis had a really Jekyll and Hyde season last year, struggled with inherited runners, actually really struggled with right-handed hitters too, which as a sinker-slider guy, you need to be able to get righties out. And that's going to be one of the things I monitor with Elvis's performances. He's had issues with tipping his pitches. That was a big problem with him in his Angels days. I'm not saying he was doing that last season, but he needs to perform because they've got that last option year on him. They still love his stuff. And remember, he came out of the gates great last season. But do they burn that last option year at some point this year to see if he makes it? But we've already got 6 locks on this list with McGill, Koenig, Payamps, Mears, Hudson, and Alexander. So there's not a lot of room here if you're going to eventually have 13 pitchers, 5 starters 8 relievers. That's 6. There's 2 spots essentially available on the opening day roster. And then you've got Connor Thomas on a Rule 5. Imagine he'll at least get a look. And then you have to figure out of these other option guys. Or maybe somebody comes out of nowhere that makes the roster as a non-roster invitee, like a Craig Yoho or something like that. Again, Yoho's not on the 40-man roster. Remember that. Same with Jacob Mizorowski. We talk a lot about those guys. They didn't need to be put on the 40-man for Rule 5 protection, so nobody could go in and swipe them from the Brewers farm system. If they perform, they're going to be added to the 40-man roster. We'll be monitoring that throughout spring training. Again, the phone number, 855-616-1620, 855-616-1620, the Siding Unlimited WTMJ talk and text line. Let's talk about the stuff that seems like is going to hog all the oxygen that is going to be spring training for the Brewers this year is what the heck's going on in the infield? Who's playing where? What are their roles? Who's going to be on the left side? How do you replace Willy Adames? Well, we'll start to preview that. I don't have all the answers. I've made my predictions a handful of times on this show, but let's preview that, lay it all out once again, coming up after the break on 620 WTMJ.
Team up with the Brewers for an epic company event this season. Gather your crew of just 15 or more for a Brewers group outing and trade weekday meetings for a fun-filled day at American Family Field. Featuring options like tailgate spaces, all-inclusive areas, seating blocks, and more. Plus, Brewers ticket representatives will make planning your event easy, as they'll be your concierge while you book your event. Start planning your company outing today at brewers.com/groups.
Save on the best quality furniture and mattresses during the President's Day sale at Ken Michaels Furniture. With major discounts from our premier suppliers, you will save big bucks on top brands like Bradenton Young, made in the foothills of the Great Smoky Mountains. Bradenton Young is known for its fine quality leather upholstery. Yours brings you modern Scandinavian design recliners and sofas, ergonomically engineered for more hip and back support. Norwalk, with American roots that go back over 100 years, specializes in making furniture just for you. Choose the piece, style, fabric, or leather you want, and in just 35 days, we'll deliver your new sofa, chair, or sectional. In-stock or special orders are all sale priced. Need a little help putting it all together? At Ken Michaels Furniture, our design staff is ready to help you with your purchases, and it's free. Stop in today and save now during the President's Day sale at Ken Michaels Furniture in Brookfield, Greenfield, or downtown Milwaukee.
Do you know or work with kids who have special healthcare needs? Help them live their best lives. Contact Wisconsin Wayfinder Children's Resource Network. Our specialists will connect you with services in your area. Wisconsin Wayfinder is free and confidential. Call 877-947-2929 or visit dhs.wi.gov/WISCWAY. Connect today. Sponsored by the Wisconsin Department of Health Services.
This is Brewers Weekly on WTMJ.
Who's going to play short, Dom? Who's going to play short? Who's going to play short? That's what my mentions look like on any given day during this offseason. I'm Dom Cotroneo. Nate Rilling is our producer. We're going to the top of the hour. Okay. I've made my prediction. This was, I want to say, early January when the Brewers made the Devin Williams trade, that I did not think it was crazy to suggest, this was before Caleb Durbin was in the picture, that Bryce Terang could be a candidate at short and you just keep Joey Ortiz at third. People have been asking me, why would you move the Platinum Glove winner? Why would you move him? Well, because you can. He's a great defender. He's not a great defender only at second base. He doesn't lose all of his powers when he goes to short. Instead of moving as much to his right, maybe he's moving more to his left. The Brewers were genius with the way they positioned their infield, which helped him get so many defensive runs saved and had such a great year defensively. Bryce came up as an infielder, as a shortstop, and moved to second base because Willy Adames was in the fold. And it was always sort of seen that Bryce could be the heir apparent when Willie left until they acquired Joey Ortiz. And they didn't even know what they had with Joey Ortiz last spring training. They knew he was going to make the team, but they did not realize that they would be better off not platooning him at third base. They started the year platooning him and Oliver Dunn at third base and Andrew Monasterio. I mean, Andrew Monasterio with respect to Mona, love that guy, got the start on opening day because they were facing a lefty. Think about that for a second. Joey Ortiz, who had that incredible May and into June before injuries started to catch up to him, he's bench, he can bounce around the infield. So there's so much we don't know is what I'm trying to get at here. We don't know how good Caleb Durbin can be. We don't know how healthy Oliver Dunn is now. He assures the Brewers beat that he is healthy. I'll talk to him myself once we get down there next week. In the scenario that I keep replaying in my mind, it's a lot easier to lock down the left side of the infield with Ortiz at third and Terang at short, and then platoon second base with the combination of Oliver Dunn and Caleb Durbin. Now, I know Durbin has played a little bit of third base, and I know Dunn has played a little bit of third base, but for a team that prides itself in defensive ability, you need to be able to keep that left side strong. Counter argument coming in here, Dom, first base, Rhys Hoskins. He's not exactly a great defender. You're not wrong. He's about a little worse than league average. Doesn't have a ton of range to his right side. Jake Bauers does. What does that picture look like? Does Jake Bauers make the team? Remember, he's not on the roster right now. He's on a minor league deal. Who is their backup first baseman? What is the plan on a day that Rhys needs a day? Is he going to suddenly play 150 games? I don't foresee that. Or what are the days that Rhys is going to DH if they're facing a lefty perhaps and they want to load up with as many righties as they can? Do they have another right-handed hitting first baseman, another right-handed hitter DH? Is Haas going to be? These are all questions that come back to, all right, is Terang at second or is Terang at short? Because that's the real question to me. I know I've said a lot that it seems likely that Joey Ortiz is just going to slide over to short because that was his position coming up in the Orioles organization. I think the fact that the Brewers have not flatly said this guy is going to get the most reps at short, because they've had plenty of opportunity to do so between the day that Adames signed and now. We'll find out more next week once again, but are we literally going to make this a competition as to who is going to be the starting shortstop, Terang or Ortiz? I do think the profile fits better for Dunn and Durbin. This isn't just because they're short kings, coming from a short king here, in the sub 5'9" category. I do find second base to be a position that, quite frankly, is a little bit easier to learn. And another guy that I've talked about and continue to get flack for that is going to be considered on the infield, we don't know how seriously, is Sal Frelick. How much is Yelly going to play the outfield? That impacts Sal's playing time. How much is Garrett Mitchell or Blake Perkins? Who's healthy? Who's not? These are all questions that will be answered in the next 6 weeks. But the big question that we will be monitoring all spring training long, who is going to be the opening day shortstop? I think it's a great question right now. I really do. After all of these seasons with Willy Adames, yep, no doubt, put it in Sharpie, Willy Adames at short, new era, here we go. Time to figure it out. May the best man win. Excited to learn from those guys down there. One of the things with Joey, going to have to hit. The second half last season, go look at those splits on Baseball Reference. I'll pull them up right now for you. He did not get a hit in the postseason. And there were some injuries he was playing through, adjusting to the big leagues. Again, everybody's got tape on everybody in the big leagues, so they understand your weaknesses, will understand what you dislike and what you like. Pulling up his platoons here. First half, 801 OPS in 270 plate appearances. Okay, so in 240 plate appearances in the second half, that OPS dropped to 645. So over 150 points between halves. 7 homers in the first half, only 4 in the second half. More strikeouts in the second half. His on-base dipped below 285. He's going to need to hit. He really is. And we'll be monitoring that all spring long. On that note, let's talk about the 5 things that I personally am talking about and looking about and that I'm going to seek answers for here on our programming here on WTMJ. So we're going to talk 5 things that maybe haven't thought about for a little while and think about what it means for the Brewers into the 2025 season. That and more after this on WTMJ.
Cheese doodles, Mr. Nougat Bar. Oh, here we go. 4-door hatchback.
Some things are fine to buy from a vending machine, but a car's not one of them. That national online company makes it seem convenient, but it won't be so convenient if you have a problem with the vehicle you buy. And if it's after 7 days, good luck. Adam member dealers also let you search online, plus test drive the vehicle before you buy it. And they're right here to handle any issues.
What? The car's stuck. No!
Start your search at adamm.com.
Save big during Menards Race to Savings Sale. An 8-pack of 100-watt equivalent LED light bulbs is just $3.99. 76-count Tide laundry pods, only $16.99. Dots Homestyle pretzels are just $4.99. Plus, buy a 10-pack of Bird suet cakes for just $8.99 and get a suet cake feeder free. These great deals won't last long, so save today. Plus, sign up for Menards emails to get more big savings right to your inbox.
Save big money at Menards.
AccuNet Mortgage is an equal housing lender. NMLS ID 255368.
This is Chief Anti-Heartbreak Officer Brian Wickert. While national headlines talk about the inventory of homes for sale being a lot higher this year, that's still not the case in most of Wisconsin. The good news is that now, even in winter, AccuNet's experienced loan consultants are already helping many of our pre-approved home shoppers become homeowners and avoid the heartbreak of losing in a multi-offer situation. Sure, you can go with a flimsy, unimaginative bank pre-approval, or you can present your offer with an AccuNet rock-solid, fully verified, and guaranteed pre-approval that also might come with the phrase that really makes sellers happy: no appraisal required. When an appraisal is needed, we can also show you in dollars and cents what it means to willingly pay a certain dollar amount over the appraised value if that's what's needed to win, which is usually a lot less scary than people imagine. Reduce your risk of home shopper heartbreak by getting started with your rock-solid guaranteed pre-approval at AccuNet.com. That's ACCUNET.com.
Advent will get you breathing freely again with simple in-office solutions like turbinate reduction along with balloon sinuplasty that really can change your life.
When it comes to simple, affordable home improvements, at Les's Glass, you'll find an array of options. Like for bath remodeling, adding a new glass shower door, embeveling the edges of your mirrors, or simply having us install new mirrors to any living space in your home can add a touch of elegance and depth that can really turn a room's frown upside down. Or maybe you're thinking new cabinet doors. Before you write that check, find out how we can make your ordinary cabinet doors beautiful with a variety of glass insert options that can be easily installed into your existing wood cabinets and make a world of difference. And before you pay for new windows, call us to see if our affordable insulated glass replacement services can't save you a few bucks. This is Stacy Sinks with Les's Glass Service. If it's a new glass shower door, fogged or broken insulated glass replacement, or affordable glass and mirror home decor that you've been looking for, you just can't pass on Les's Glass. Les's Glass Service, serving all of southeastern Wisconsin. Find us at lesglassservice.com.
Brewers Weekly on WTMJ.
5 things I'm looking for here in segment number 5. A little less than 15 minutes left in the show. I'm Dom Cotroneo. Again, follow us on social media. I'll be down there for all of your coverage. On X at Dom_Cotroneo. On Instagram, DomCBaseball. Thinking about Blue Sky, still thinking about it. It's just going to be the same stuff on Twitter. If I end up posting on Blue Sky, who knows? Nonetheless, 5 things. Thing number 1. Where's Tyler Black going to play? He's on the 40-man. Used his first option last year. Defensively, could he be the backup first baseman? Potentially. Given they have a minor league deal for Jake Bauers, lefty. Maybe they like the profile from Black a little bit more. But when it comes to defense, he's still figuring it out. He's an athlete. There's no question of the matter. Sometimes hands are the last thing to come along. He even got some reps in the outfield last year in AAA. I don't foresee that happening for Black in the big league level, given the depth that they have. It sounds like Black's out of the running at third base, though. That's what it sounds like to me. And maybe they just focus on first base. And I said this in my lineup scenario a couple of episodes ago. I mean, Black's probably my opening day DH as of now, if you're facing a righty. We talked about it. I have, Terang leading off, Churio hitting second, Yelich hitting third, William hitting fourth, Garrett hitting 5th, Reese hitting 6th, Sal or Black hitting 7th, the other hitting 8th, Ortiz hitting 9th. That's my look at it right now. You know, and it can be tweaked maybe with another lefty in there with like an Oliver Dunn. But where is Tyler Black going to fit in on this roster? And specifically, where does his playing time come from positionally without an injury? An injury changes that. But is he going to be considered on the opening day roster? That's something we will find out over the next 6 weeks. Number 2, is Jacob Misiorowski improving? We talked about it briefly, not on the 40-man, doesn't have to be. Big year for him in AAA because he was really cooking at the middle portion of July, August, and I mean, I brought up his name multiple times on the postgame shows, and even to Matt Arnold, that they were seriously identifying Misiorowski as somebody that they were very, very excited for and potentially could make an impact in the bullpen. You know, in that hybrid role we've seen so many Brewers do over the years, going back to 16, 17, 18 with Peralta and Woodruff and Burns all coming up. But Misiorowski, I mean, the big thing that we're all going to be monitoring is his walks. 14% walk rate just ain't going to cut it in the big leagues. In fact, it went about stagnant. It's kind of plateaued right now. It was 12% mostly, then it rose to 15% in 2023. In all the minors in 23, it was 13%. This year, it got up to 14%. So, not a great trend to have, and while the strikeouts slightly dipped, and he also had to pitch in a level that had the automated strike zone. Still, when he's in the strike zone, nobody seems to hit him. A 166 opponent batting average across all of minor league baseball last year, an 088 average in AAA, but that's in very few innings. That's only in 17 innings when he started to get some more work as a reliever as a way to limit his innings. But in AAA, I mean, he had a solid year in AA, but the walks did catch up to him. In total, 97 innings across the minors last year, 127 strikeouts. Goodness. 127 strikeouts. But 60 walks, 15 wild pitches, and 13 hit batters. We'll be monitoring that for Jacob Misiorowski. Number 3, just to tease this in the last segment, what are Joey Ortiz's offensive goals in 2025? We talked about the second half slump that he had, talked about how great he was in May. It just felt like he was chasing the 8 ball with the neck, the hamstring. He had stuff going on in the second half of the season that the Brewers needed him to play through. Monasterio started getting some looks, but with Dunn out for the year and Black not really being considered at third base at that time, given how important the games were, Ortiz had to play. So that's one of my big questions. What is Joey Ortiz going to show up in camp like? Is he going to put on more muscle? He's done this before in the Orioles organization. Between 22 and 23, he arrived putting on good muscle and added some power to his game before going to AAA Norfolk, and then ultimately was traded to the Brewers ahead of the 24 season. Does he find that playbook again heading into 2025? Now, it's not, if it was that easy, everybody would do it, but that's something we're going to monitor. Number 4, how many of the lefty hitters are going to get looks against left-handed pitchers? This was something that was a big subject in last year's camp. We were monitoring, okay, Pat Murphy's first camp. Is there anything different? What's going on? What are we learning? And it was how he would load the lineup like a spring training lineup should be loaded. If they were facing a left-handed starter, he would load the top 4 batters of lefties. He wanted to see Garrett Mitchell. He wanted to see Sal Frelick. He wanted to see Tyler Black left on left. How much more of that are we going to see this year? This is a big spring training for Garrett Mitchell. Huge. Because if he can show strong signs like he did last spring in hitting lefties before he unfortunately got hurt the second to last day before opening day, he's going to get reps against lefties. It's not just going to be a straight platoon with him and Blake Perkins. So that's something we'll monitor. And finally, number 5, is Babe Haas going to do it again? Eric Haas, remember, was on fire. And that's an understatement of how he was looking in spring training last year. He's got the backup catcher job locked up. Jefferson Caro is not going to make this team out of spring training. He's still building back up from his shoulder tear. This is going to be an easier camp, if you will, for Eric Haas, knowing he's got the job. There isn't competition coming to him. He proved that he can hit in the big leagues, and he showed improvement from the defensive front, too. I'm excited to see what Eric Haas can do in that unsexy role of backup catcher, but maybe it gives him a chance to prove to the Brewers that you can give William the 5-day-a-week behind-the-plate schedule and give me the other 2 games if you want to have William DH and save himself by the end of the season. Those are my 5 things. Where does Tyler Black fit? Is Jacob Mizorowski improving? Joey Ortiz's offense? Left-on-left looks? And finally, Eric Haas. All right, let's wrap things up with MLB headlines and a funny quip after this on 620 WTMJ.
Panic strikes as you realize on Wednesday that Thursday is your anniversary. The reservations being secured.
We'll see you at 8.
The gift being purchased. Yeah, you've got this. Just like Associated Bank's got you with early pay up to 2 days early on direct deposits. So even though they call you Last Minute Lisa, we'll make your last minute scrambling a bit easier. You've got this with early pay from Associated Bank. See associatedbank.com/checking or ask a banker for details. Member FDIC.
Each year, more than 23,000 kids experience cardiac arrest, and 20% are infants. Every second counts, and CPR can triple the chance of survival. This Heart Month, the American Heart Association and WTMJ urge you to learn child and infant CPR. Be ready to save the lives of those you love. Hear helpful advice from Katie Connolly of the American Heart Association and Dr. Joy Lincoln of the Medical College of Wisconsin and Children's Hospital during Wisconsin's Midday News on February 14th. Learn more at heart.org.
Hey, WTMJ's John Burke here. I've got a great idea for your weekend. Hang out with us on Experience Wisconsin. Saturdays at 1 o'clock, we're going to check in with communities across the state for the best and the brightest spots. We will highlight things that take place indoors, things that are outdoors, things that it doesn't matter what the weather holds, will allow you to have an absolute great time. Hey, we're going to head indoors this week. It's going to be fun. The Nary Spring Home Improvement Show takes place, and we will be joined by an expert from Nary. It's Experience Wisconsin, Saturdays at 1 on WTMJ.
Traffic is brought to you by Rejuvenix, your non-surgical joint therapy experts.
The next time they ask you what size tires you need, just go to richlawns.com.
That's Richlawn spelled with 2 N's.
No more trying to read that tiny writing on the side of your old tires or on the inside of your car door.
Just go to richlawns.com, click on the year button, then the make and model of your vehicle, and
the exact tire size you need.
In a multitude of brands and styles.
Yet all specific to your vehicle, because at Richlawns, there isn't a tire on the planet we can't get.
And every tire we install automatically comes with free flat tire repair, which means you're 100% covered, no questions asked.
The next time you're due for tire service, visit richlawns.com.
Because free flat tire repair automatically comes with every tire we install.
I'm Brett Matchke with Richlawns. You're due for service.
Since 1964, we've changed your tires and so much more. Richlawns Tire and Service, such a refreshing change. Richlawns.
This is Brewers Weekly on WTMJ.
All right, last segment here. Got 2 minutes or so to wrap things up. Headlines. Alex Bregman to the Red Sox. I know we teased how cool would it be if the Brewers swoop in at the last second and get him on like a 1-year deal. Clearly, there was more money on the table from other teams, including the Cubs, including the Tigers. And he turned it down for this 3-year deal with options between the first and second year and the second and third year. So he's still in control to get his own long-term deal. Really interesting. There's deferred money on it, too. Interesting deal, but going to the Red Sox to play second base. Wild. So they're going to keep Devers at third. Great move for the Red Sox. I think they've had an incredible offseason, doing what a team should do with a regime change, with a division that, quite frankly, is pretty open. Now, the Yankees are good, but the Red Sox are really good, too. The AL East is better when both the Red Sox and the Yankees are going for it, and I really enjoy that. Nick Pivetta signs a deal with the San Diego Padres. He had a qualifying offer attached to him, so that was big news for San Diego, of all teams, to give up a draft pick for him, which also kind of puts to rest the questions of, are they going to trade Dylan Cease? Are they going to trade Michael King? Doesn't sound like that's going to happen in San Diego, especially now that their ownership stuff is all settled. Another one, Kenley Jansen to the Angels. Speaking of the Angels, Anthony Rendon is hurt again. It's a day that ends in a Y. I'm not going to pile on the guy, but man, What robbery. What a weird career for Anthony Rendon in Los Angeles. Also, Pete Alonso back to the Mets for far less money than he was initially offered a couple of years ago for an extension. Apparently, Nolan Arenado is going to stay with St. Louis after all. I wonder who called that about 2 months ago when John Mozeliak was at the winter meeting saying, yes, we want to trade Nolan Arenado. I'm like, congrats, man. You lost all your leverage by doing that. And, of course, they did not trade him. Also, the Cardinals did not sign a single free agent this offseason. They are completely stuck between gears. Their transmission is blown right now. Then finally, the photo we've all seen, Devin Williams shaved because he's a Yankee now. That is the dumbest policy ever. The boss, rest in peace, man. It's a dumb policy. It's dumb. Let the guys be personable. The reason it goes is George Steinbrenner, 1973, saw his team. He found them being unkempt, didn't look like professionals. So if you're a Yankee, you shave. The only thing you can maintain is a mustache. And that is what Devin Williams is going to be. Nonetheless, it's a new era with Devin Williams' facial hair. It just looks weird to me, but it is what it is. My thanks to Nate Rilling, our producer. I'm Dominic Cotroneo. See you in Phoenix. Keep on swinging.
Team up with the Brewers for an epic company event this season. Gather your crew of just 15 or more for a Brewers group outing and trade weekday meetings for a fun-filled day at American